All right, let's talk about something many of us think we already know all about: Roman crucifixion. But as you're about to see, the history is way more complex and honestly way more fascinating than the image we all have in our heads. So let's just dive right in. So, when you hear the words Roman crucifixion, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? For most of us, it's a very, very specific picture, right? One that's been shaped by centuries of art and movies. But what if I told you that picture isn't the whole story? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to start by deconstructing the most fundamental piece of the puzzle, the instrument of execution itself, the cross, because its actual shape is the first thing we really need to rethink. And right away, here's a bit of a curveball. That familiar Latin cross, the one you see pretty much everywhere, it was definitely used, but was it the only kind? No way. You see, the Romans were, above all, pragmatic people, and their methods were a lot more varied than we give them credit for. For example, you had the crux commissa, which was literally shaped like a capital T. Then, of course, there's the one we know best, the crux emissa, which is that classic Latin cross. And get this, there was also the crux decussata, an X-shaped cross. The choice really just depended on what kind of wood they had and whatever the local customs were. Okay, so the shape of the cross wasn't set in stone. But what about that long walk to the execution site? This brings us to another huge assumption we all make: the prisoner hauling that entire massive cross through the streets. You know, despite everything we've seen in art and movies, the historical and archaeological evidence just doesn't support the idea of one person dragging a full-sized cross. Think about it. It would have been unbelievably heavy and just really impractical. So the myth is the entire cross, top to bottom. But the reality? Well, the reality is that the condemned person carried only the horizontal beam. And that simple fact changes the whole picture, doesn't it? And this horizontal beam, it actually had a specific name. It was called the patibulum. It's kind of cool to know the right term, right? It really helps lock in this more accurate historical picture. So, that grim procession we've all seen depicted, try to picture this instead. The prisoner stumbling through the streets, carrying not a full cross, but this heavy, rough-hewn wooden beam, the patibulum, slung across their shoulders. The next obvious question is, just how heavy was that thing? It was about 20 kilograms, or 44 pounds. Now, I know that might not sound like an absolutely impossible weight, but for someone who had probably been starved, beaten, and tortured, carrying 44 pounds for any significant distance would have been pure agony. All right, so we've adjusted our idea of the cross's shape, and we've corrected what the prisoner was actually carrying. So how did these two separate pieces, the patibulum they carried and the rest of the cross, actually come together? Let's reconstruct the process. Well, here's the final piece of the puzzle. The vertical post, the part known as the stipes, wasn't carried at all. These were often permanent fixtures, just left standing at the execution grounds outside the city, a constant, grim warning of Roman power. So here's how this grimly efficient process actually worked. The vertical post, the stips, is already in the ground waiting. The prisoner arrives, exhausted, carrying the patibulum. Then, on the ground, they're attached to that beam. And only then is the whole thing, the beam with the victim on it, hoisted up and slammed into place on the vertical post. So let's just do a quick recap of what we've learned. The crosses came in different shapes, like a T or an X. The Latin cross, we all know, was just one of the options. Prisoners only carried the horizontal beam, the patibulum, which weighed about 44 pounds. And the vertical post, the stipes, was already waiting for them at the site. So what's the big takeaway here? Knowing the actual mechanics, the different shapes, the two-part construction, it doesn't make it any less horrific. Not at all. But it does give us a clearer, more historically accurate lens to see it through. And it forces us to ask a really big question. How does this more grounded, factual picture change our understanding of one of the most powerful and lasting symbols in all of human history?